This is a discussion of how to make the United States better. How do we do that? We're going to study here Andrew Carnegie. Now, today in the United States, we face an increasing problem that there are too many super rich people now. That spells trouble. When elites grow swollen and opportunities for their children dry up, unrest is inevitable. In addition, there's the ongoing contention between those who want capitalism and those who want socialism. These are problems. They create anxiety in our country. Back in the late 19th century, there were also similar issues, and yet the richest man in America who believed in capitalism also admired socialism and said he was a socialist, sort of. And moreover, he gave away almost all of his fortune before he died in 1919. In some ways, I think his life would teach us how the United States should be run. You know who he was? Andrew Carnegie. During the last 18 years of his life, he gave away $350 million, which is roughly $5.2 billion in 2020, almost 90% of his fortune in charities, foundations, and universities. His 1889 article proclaiming the gospel of wealth called on the rich to use their wealth to improve society, expressed support for progressive taxation and an estate tax, and stimulated a wave of philanthropy. Carnegie was born into poverty in Scotland in 1835. Andrew Carnegie's mill worker's father was a casualty of the introduction of steam-powered machinery into the Scottish textile factories. The loss of the elder Carnegie's job forced the family to leave Scotland in 1848 and seek a new life in the Pittsburgh area, the United States. Andrew was 12. The irony lies in the fact that by the end of the century, young Andrew would be one of the driving forces behind the same industrial transition of America. In the process, Andrew would become the richest man in America. And by the way, behind me is a photograph of the house in which Andrew Carnegie was raised till he was 12. Now, his formal education ended when he left Scotland, where he had no more than a few years schooling, but he soon found employment in Pennsylvania as a bobbin boy at a cotton factory, earning $1.20 a week. By the time he was in his early 30s, he had worked himself up into real wealth. 20 years later, in 1885, while trying to lock disgruntled workers out of his steel mill, he spoke favorably of socialistic principles. A reporter asked him, "But are you a socialist?" Carnegie did not answer directly. He said, "I believe socialism is the grandest theory ever presented, and I am sure someday it will rule the world. Then we will have obtained the millennium, that is the state we are drifting into. Then men will be content to work for the general welfare and share their riches with their neighbors." Are you prepared now to divide your wealth, he was asked? And Mr. Carnegie smiled. "No, not at present, but I do not spend much on myself. I give away every year 7 or 8 times as much as I spend for personal comforts and pleasures." And this is, by the way, a picture of Andrew Carnegie and his brother, long time ago. Now, how, one might ask today, could the richest man in America not only speak favorably of socialism, give away 90% of his wealth before he died? In today's world, where 1% seems to be fighting to hold on to every penny, it seems impossible. Now, it's true that Bill Gates and Warren Buffett made the giving pledge in 2010, promising to give away half their money. But now in 2022, they have more money than they did then. Carnegie achieved his promise in part by having a prenuptial agreement with his wife, whom he married at age 50. She was much younger. And there's a picture of them. And she agreed that he could give away his wealth. But although Carnegie proclaimed himself a socialist, he acted very much like a capitalist in the way he ran his company. He was against unions and worked hard to keep salaries in his companies low. Yet in the end, he did give away most of the money he had earned during his lifetime. His only child, a daughter, did not inherit vast amounts of money. Well, no, but from 1934 to 1973, she was a trustee of the Carnegie Corporation of New York, the grant-making foundation established by her father in 1911. The man who dies rich dies disgraced. Andrew Carnegie now famously wrote, when he died in 1919, he left his wife her personal assets, a small cash gift, and their real property, which was a Manhattan townhouse and their holiday home in Scotland. And here's a picture of the house in Manhattan where they lived. Now, his only daughter, Margaret, received a small trust, and eventually they had to sell the townhouse due to its costly upkeep. He left them enough money that they would be comfortable, but never as much money as the children of his fellow robber barons, who lived in enormous luxury. Here's a shot of where his money came from: steel plants around Pittsburgh. And where did his money go? Carnegie funded the building of 2,509 Carnegie libraries worldwide between 1883 and 1929. And of those, 1,795 were in the United States, and the rest, that included public libraries, 1,687, and 108 academic ones. And the others were built in Europe, South Africa, Barbados, Australia, and New Zealand. He also gave money away to start the Carnegie Institute of Technology, and the same amount, $2 million, to found the Carnegie Institute at Washington, D.C. to encourage research and discovery. And he later contributed more to those in other schools.